Hi, everyone. Welcome to WeShow Euro 2020 on the WeShow Football YouTube channel. My name is Jessica, and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @It'sJessino. This is the 5th episode of WeShow Euro 2020, so we hope that you guys are enjoying it so far. And the final round of the group stage matches is done and dusted. And with the help of Rob and David, we're going to be picking our best teams, players, and goals of the group stages. So I'm going to go ahead and bring them in now. Hey, David, how are you?
Hi, Jess. How are you?
I'm good. I can't complain. And Rob, how are you?
Oh, good. How are you all doing? Good to see you again.
Good. So the group stages is over. Now it's time to move on to the last 16. But before we move to our predictions of the games coming up, let's just kind of wrap up the group stages if we can. So let's talk about the best team that we have picked for the group stages. I'll go with Rob first.
I really think it's got to be Italy, particularly the way they've forced themselves to be considered amongst the favourites after we didn't even have them at the World Cup 3 years ago. They've been so impressive in their winning run now for so long, and Mancini's really helped to transform the team. And even their second team, did they make 8 changes, I think, for that game against Wales and still winning 1-0? It really shows the strength and depth they have, because that was a game they didn't even need to win, and yet they still won it with the hungry second string players. And they are a real contender now heading into the knockout phase. Now they're at Wembley on Saturday night against Austria.
Yeah, and I think if you think about that Italian side, 3 wins, 3 games, 3 wins, 3 clean sheets, without knowing the scores, given what we've seen in the past from Italy at competitions, you could so easily assume that those were 3 1-0 victories. But the way Mancini has them playing going forward, it's un-Italian, if I dare say it. So they've been very impressive on the attack. There's been a real impetus there for them moving forward. And I think, as Rob rightly says, they're probably one of the favourites now.
Yeah, it's hard to look past Italy, but David, do you have another choice?
I'm going to go for Denmark, really. I think the mental resilience from that team to come back in the way they have after what happened to Christian Eriksen just demonstrates a real strength in that group, I think. And I think that 4-1 win over Russia really just showed how strong this squad is and their ability to really, put something awful to a side and focus on a tournament which we have to admit can't be the easiest thing to do at all. So just that response after such an awful incident, I think, I really feel Denmark have won a lot of people's hearts, really, after what's happened in the group stages.
And of course, not just the trauma of it all, but when you're losing your best player as well, like losing your best player at any time would be enough to sort of think, well, actually, that's Denmark's hopes over. They can't possibly go through. They've actually had to sort of obviously recover from not having him available and actually cope without him in the team.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and if we had to choose maybe a dark horse for the round of 16 or for the rest of the tournament, I would say Denmark could probably be that team. It's not a team that people really spoke about a lot, prior to the tournament, but they've done really well so far.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. And you think, go on, Rob.
I was going to say, perhaps we should mention the dark horses we originally talked about in the first show, Turkey, who went completely exiting without any impact at all and completely walked over by all their opponents. So it just shows you might hope for like an outsider to do well, but it doesn't always go to plan like that.
So I've gone with the Netherlands. They've actually been the team that I've enjoyed watching the most. They won all three of their group stage matches, and they scored 8 goals, which is quite a bit. And they look really fluid in attack, which I really like. And they're on the more favorable side of the bracket, moving forward over there on the side with England too. So I think they have a chance to go far. I do still have some questions maybe about the defense, but in terms of what they can do going forward, they were one of the best teams to watch score goals. And I like them a lot. So
another team have the last 2 tournaments as well.
Yeah.
Maybe sitting out of the tournaments helps you sort of have that fighting spirit to suddenly start to impress more.
Yeah, and without Van Dijk, we should add as well. So a big loss for them, but yeah.
But they're definitely very exciting to watch, which I really like, especially because you're looking for some attacking football. Some of the more the higher up teams like your Frances and your Portugals play quite pragmatic football. So sometimes you just want to see a team go forward and express themselves. And I think the Netherlands did a good job at that throughout the group stages. So let's move to our best player so far in the group stages. And I'll go first just to keep on with the Netherlands vibe. I actually chose Gini Wijnaldum. It's a player that I watch quite a bit play for Liverpool, and he doesn't really have that role of being the person to go forward and create, but he already has 3 goals, in this tournament so far. And the players that are in front of him or level with him in the Golden Boot race are all strikers except for Forsberg, so I think he's making a good account of himself, in this tournament with his free transfer to Paris Saint-Germain. I think this is a really exciting player to watch playing in a different role and in a leadership role also in this Netherlands side that's missing, like we've already spoken about Virgil van Dijk. So I think he's been one of the standout players in this tournament, not only based on statistics and what he's done for them with goals, but also with his leadership and things like that.
He really does have a different role to play for the Netherlands. I think when Liverpool signed him from Newcastle, he was that sort of attacking midfielder, getting goals from midfield. But Jurgen Klopp obviously saw him in a different position, and a lot of the times we often saw Wijnaldum sitting deep. But as you say, for the Netherlands, he's really that attacking player, that breaking that last line to support the strikers. And I mean, he's always come up with very important goals for Liverpool. I can think of 2 in that Champions League semi-final against Barcelona, and his form for the Netherlands is very, very different in terms of his goal scoring ability.
I was at Anfield on the final day of the season where we had this sort of awkward sort of farewell to him, where in his post-match interviews on the pitch, he was almost like talking about reluctantly leaving. And there was almost this surprise that there was a guard of honour for him at the end. So it was that final, match of the season against Crystal Palace, obviously clinching 4th place. And suddenly this guard of honour was formed, I think, for like a groundsman or someone at Liverpool. And then they started to do one for Wijnaldum. And it was only then I think we actually fully realised that he was actually leaving. And then it started to emerge post-match. Oh, right, yeah, Liverpool, maybe he is valuable to stay, but obviously contractually they couldn't come to an agreement. And now he's walking into a team like, PSG for nothing. Another top team that's challenging for titles.
100%. So, David, who do you have for your best player of the group stages?
I'm going to go for Romelu Lukaku. I think he's carried his form into Milan this season, into the Euros. 3 goals. He's right up there. He could challenge Ronaldo for the Golden Boot if Belgium go all the way. But I think he's been the most impressive player for me in that Belgium side. There are question marks for me over their defence and the line that Roberto Martinez plays with quite an ageing side. And I think we might go on to talk about how Portugal can exploit that in the round of 16. But I think with Axel Witsel coming back, there's question marks over his fitness. Hazard hasn't looked up to scratch for me. Hopefully KDB is fully fit now for this game. But I think Lukaku's been the shining light really for Belgium so far.
It's interesting, some of the players you mentioned there, and actually they're all tied together by something that might be interesting to see if they all do perform pretty well for this tournament. So Jose Mourinho is working as a pundit for radio during this tournament. Well, Lukaku's a player he sort of wrote off at United, isn't he? Also at Chelsea. De Bruyne, a player that he
sold
at all at Chelsea, let him go. Had to go to Wolfsburg to rebuild his career. Then, Luke Shaw with England as well. So actually, there's a few players scattered across Euros teams who might be doing well, who were sort of discarded by Mourinho. Mourinho sort of perhaps some of his less adept man management skills, if the kind of way of putting it, basically ostracised some of these players, and Pogba as well with France as well. We're looking to, let's keep an eye on them, the sort of Mourinho outcasts, and how well they do during this tournament.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'd just like to give an honourable mention, if I can, to Thierry Henry, who has obviously been working a bit with Lukaku at Belgium. And he's now come back into the fold under Martinez. But you can just see with Lukaku now, his confidence is completely rebuilt. I mean, if you think about the player that left Man United, I think he'd scored 12 goals in the Premier League before they sold him to Inter Milan. And in his 2 seasons at Inter now, it's 23 and 24 goals. So obviously, naturally, Conte deserves a lot of praise. But I think the way Lukaku is moving now is just, you can see bits of what Thierry Henry used to do. And I mean, if he can carry on like that, Belgium could be the winners, really, for me.
And it was some of Lukaku's movement and fitness, wasn't it? That was doubted by Mourinho at United. I think, didn't those running stats get leaked or something? Or something? And he certainly proved himself what an impact he can have to win a title for Inter. And, obviously talked about for a return to Chelsea even.
Yeah. I mean, can we end the section before speaking about Cristiano Ronaldo? I mean, he's up there statistically. What does he have? 5 goals already, breaking records, all those things that we know Cristiano Ronaldo to do in almost every tournament that he plays in. Is there a reason why maybe, I mean, he wasn't top of mind until I looked at the numbers, but he's doing well in this tournament, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some penalties, but you've got to hit the target, and that obviously does not happen all the time. I don't think we have had loads of penalty misses this tournament. I think like a record high. We got double figures or something nearly on it, but there's so many penalty misses. It actually shows that, you might rack up some of the goal numbers with penalties, but you've got to show that coolness and the ability to at least be hitting a target. But also, he's an example of protecting your body and actually squeezing every ounce of your career possible out of it by acting in the right way, by trying to ensure that longevity, and also I suppose that element of reinvention as well. So we're not expecting to see him bursting down the wings, but obviously more central position these days, where he's there primed and exactly knows where he's going for goal. And now he's on the record equaling 109 goals, so just one away from the all-time record for a men's player. Obviously he's going to do that. How many goals will he get more? I mean, the actual all-time scoring record, I think, is going to be very hard to catch. Christine Sinclair, she's on at 174, I think it is. How many goals is 186 goals for Canada. So I don't think he'll be able to get the all-time international scoring record. He's question is, where does he go after this tournament potentially as well? There's talk of whether or not he leaves Juve, and does he make a return to the Premier League? Obviously, he commands big money, so it does limit the potential range of options for him.
And he's delivered time and time again for Portugal. If you look at that front four with Jota, with Bernardo Silva, with Bruno Fernandes, who didn't start the last game, it's always been Ronaldo, the go-to player, the one that's getting these goals. And I think he's probably going to need a bit more from those around him against Belgium, because it's going to be very hard for him to kind of continue to reproduce this in the next 3 or 4 games if Portugal to get all the way to the final.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's a good example of maybe somebody that doesn't always pass the eye test. I mean, of course, he plays nice football, but he makes sure that he gets the goals and assists and does the job, and that makes a huge difference, especially when you're playing in tournament football. So let's talk about the best goal, in the group stages. What do you guys think? I'll go to Rob first. I mean, we all can't choose the shit goal. We have to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been a, I think Modric's goal as well was really important at Hampden Park, where also the shit goal came, because, some people started to question Modric in particularly the game against England in terms of, well, is he now sort of going a bit past it? Is he aging? And he was really overrun in that midfield by the Englishman. But I think at Hampden, he established himself re-established himself, showed just what enduring quality and class he's got in that midfield, then produced a goal that helped sort of decisively turn it back around and put Croatia through and end the Scottish hopes. And certainly he wasn't just a player who produced a goal. That's the point. It was the all-round game as well from him. But I think, obviously Schick's goal will be the one that will be watched forevermore. And he didn't really have much of an impact against England. And let's talk about, will he start to earn will Premier League clubs start to be interested in him? He's got 3 goals, and you sense actually some in Germany start to say, well, actually, let's just see how much more he's got beyond these couple of games. Like, type of player you can imagine. I think people joking like, I don't know, Everton will suddenly pay 40 million for, then actually does nothing much through the season. Not to like to necessarily single out Everton for being someone to make a bad sort of signing, but we often see those players who are sort of signed by a team that actually don't have that, the goal record to expect of them. Maybe James, as obviously when Real Madrid signed him after 2014 World Cup.
Yeah, I for one, I'm hoping that my team is able to avoid, the Jaime type signings, after a good tournament performance, please avoid it at all costs, but so we have the shit goal, we have Modric's goal as well. David, do you have another one to throw into the pot there?
I'm going to throw in one as well, maybe one that doesn't spring to mind for many people, but I'm going to go for Andrei Yarmolenko's goal against the Netherlands. Doing, as I'd like to call it, his best Robin impression of cutting in off the left and cutting in off the right, and then bending one into the top corner. I mean, it obviously didn't lead to, it wasn't a winning goal, but I just thought it was such an exquisite goal and so well taken. And yeah, a player who hasn't really had the best season at West Ham, 15 appearances, didn't finish a single game, didn't play 90 minutes all season. So when you think about coming into a tournament without any of that confidence that we were talking about earlier with Lukaku, he scored 2 goals now for the Ukraine. And I mean, it was an excellent finish for me.
Yeah, that was a very nice goal as well. We've seen some nice goals. It's just, I think the shit goal just kind of, blew everything out of the water because it was so extraordinary. But I do want to give a mention to a team goal, which don't usually get good mentions, because it's hard to have a spectacular team goal. But for me, I'm going to go back to the Netherlands and go back to Dumfries' goal. The second goal that they scored against Austria, it was a Depay to Malen to Dumfries' goal. I would have chosen Dumfries for my best player, but I just think Gini did a little bit more. But I can't, the amount of people talking about Denzel Dumfries now he's somebody that you probably want to avoid for the same reasons, like the Jaime reasons and stuff like that. But he's having a good tournament. And I think that goal, although it was not individual, was a very nice team goal. We don't see those very often. So I just wanted to give a special mention to that one as well.
And we should congratulate the top scorer of the tournament as well, who I'd be interested in who wants to sign own goal. 8 of them have been a record. The fact there'd only been 9 own goals in every previous Euros combined, going back to 1960, and suddenly now we've got 8 in less than 2 weeks. So pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the Dubravka one really stands out.
A lot of uncomfortable moments though for those goalkeepers and who accidentally put the ball in their own goal.
Yeah, for sure. It's been an interesting tournament in terms of own goals and missed penalties and things like that, So we'll see if that continues on in the round of 16. Danny Air says, have we talked about Sweden versus Ukraine? We haven't, but we're getting to that right now. We're going to get into our predictions for the round of 16. So basically, we're going to play a little bit of a prediction game. We're going to give our verdict on how we think each game will finish. And each of us will choose the outcomes, a winner after full time, after extra time, or after penalties. And I guess, are we going to get a prize? Hopefully we get a prize, whoever wins, see if we get anything at the end of this, Tom.
Someone has to get out of drinks, and if anyone's actually ever allowed to travel again and be in the same place.
Yep. So I think Tom is backstage and he's going to be marking down our predictions. And Tom, I am saying that if I win, I would like a prize, something. Send me something, but let's go ahead and get into it. So Wales versus Denmark. Rob, what do you have for that one?
I think this will be a Wales win. I think they actually might just have enough to be able to go through maybe an extra time, but I think they are starting to click into gear. The question is, have Denmark, have they pulled that performance out, the one big performance in the last game, the group stage, carry themselves through? And we really are seeing I just think Wales can have that threat. And I think it's fascinating the fact, obviously we've got Rob Page as manager, who shouldn't have even been in the job. He's only there as the acting manager because Ryan Giggs is involved in legal issues. So amazing in terms of actually a coach who somebody probably never imagined managing his country at a major tournament, suddenly there. And you've got players like Aaron Ramsey who aren't necessarily getting the game time they want at Juventus, suddenly back on international duty, feeling comfortable, feeling assured, and obviously Gareth Bale with something to prove as well, particularly with his own future, having all those questions around as well, what happens at Real Madrid. So I think it helps when not only you're trying to go for your country, but also to deliver something for yourself personally. But
sorry, Rob, have you given a prediction?
But I was saying he's not scored in 14 games, though, Gareth Bale, and he missed that penalty. So when we're talking about Cristiano's penalties, successful conversions, that was a moment, but that could have been really costly for Wales. That Bale should at least be hitting the target. Mm-hmm. I think Wales will do it, though, in extra time. David?
I'm going to go Denmark on penalties. And I found it very interesting that Kasper Hjulmand, the Danish head coach, talked about giving his players homework on penalties and actually referred to the fact that approximately, he said, 23% of matches in the knockout stages of the Euros and the World Cup go all the way through to penalties. And I think he might be right with this one. I think it might go to penalties, and I will go for Denmark on penalties.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Denmark in extra time. Not for any particular reason. Now that you've said that, maybe I should have said penalties, but I think the game won't, it won't be decided in the regular time frame. I have to go into extra time. And really, I'm picking Denmark because I just want them to win. I want them to go as far as possible because of everything that they've been through. So no real statistical data or anything backing this up. Just want to see Denmark do well, so yeah.
And it's worth just pointing out that this game is actually taking place in Amsterdam at the Johan Cruyff Arena, where Eriksen obviously made his name playing for Ajax. So there might be a bit of fate there, really. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things about this tournament. You almost forget where some of the games are being played sometimes.
Yeah.
You realise when you're watching it, it's in Amsterdam. I mean, the main challenge obviously being that fact Welsh fans can't go to the game. There will be Danish fans there, but the Netherlands is on the amber list of countries from Wales, so anyone who's going there would have to quarantine when going back to Wales. So, the Danish fans will be outnumbering them. And when you talk about going to penalties, of course, when you've got Kasper Schmeichel in goal, someone you'd want in a penalty shootout, I reckon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about Italy versus Austria. Is there any way that David Alaba can stop Italy from winning? I can't look past Italy, and I just think they're going to steamroll over Austria, to be honest. I mean, do you guys have any other predictions? I have Italy.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I think Alaba's actually really interesting case study in this tournament, really showing actually how the versatility of players helps, and actually players who are, we've seen him in midfield, in defence, and now more of a sort of central defensive playmaker with Austria, and that really helps, I think, in modern football, the fact you can switch around positions. I don't think it'll be enough for him to help to unpick the Italians. I think the Italians will still win, but certainly, he's, I think, obviously had a good tournament as he prepares to move to Real Madrid and from Bayern Munich, and still a big achievement for Austria reaching the knockout phase for the first time. But if the Italians don't win this, it'd be incredible. Interesting how many Italian fans are at Wembley, from those who are based here in the UK.
What do you think, David?
Hard to look past Italy for me, to be honest. I mean, it is a favourable draw for them. They've not got a good record at Wembley Stadium, funnily enough. I don't believe they've won their last 4 there. But I'm tipping them to end that with a comfortable victory over Austria in inside 90 minutes.
So we're all inside 90 minutes, right? For this? No extra time? Okay. Yeah. Tom, you got that? All right. So
it'd be a pretty late night otherwise. It's the late kickoff, that one. So
So let's get into Netherlands versus the Czech Republic. So David, what do you think? See what you have to say first.
I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think the Czechs, they weren't the best. They weren't that great against England, but some of their movement and their play just really showed me that, against a side that doesn't have the best defense for me in the Dutch, I think they could score a couple of goals and maybe surprise a few people. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going to go for 3-2 to the Dutch.
really kind of draw, wasn't it, for the Dutch, the way managing to get the Czech Republic? I'd say that's done well from that. But I think I can see a Dutch win. I mean, what a tournament Memphis Depay is having. He struggled when he was at Manchester United. Gone to inherited the number 7 shirt. So much pressure on him several years ago. Now, obviously, had a good year at Lyon and secured the move to Barcelona, and really showing perhaps why the impact he can make. I think it's actually available. It was a free signing as well, I think, wasn't he, for Barcelona? They've got him.
He has signed on a free,
nothing. So what a moment. And the non-Scottish player as well in the Dutch team, Dumfries. What a tournament he's having. At wing back with his first international goals. It just shows really, they've got goals through the team.
Yeah,
and even their impact players, Daniel Malin, who came off the bench and obviously squared that pass for Dumfries to score. So Ronald de Boer's got options off the bench, and I think the Dutch will probably beat the Czechs.
Yeah, I think so as well. I do think it'll go to extra time. I think it'll be like 2-2 when the game ends. I tend to agree with David that the Czech could probably get something going offensively against them. And as we spoke about earlier, I'm not sure about the Netherlands defense. So I would say the Dutch are going to win in extra time. It's definitely going to be a high scoring game, which I hope it is, because who doesn't love to see goals,
Yeah, I mean, we were spoiled with like the 2-2s in the final games in Group F. With then we had the 4-2 as well involving Germany. So we like some entertainment. Whereas the games I've been at have been 1-0, 0 and 1-0, 0-0 and 1-0. The England games, very binary.
Those are the worst. Okay, so now
doesn't bode well for the England game, Rob. If you're going to be at one for that,
that's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get into, I guess we can call this one of the bigger ones, in Belgium versus Portugal. I'm hoping that this is a good game, but something tells me it's going to be very little goals, quite cagey. I don't really see this game opening up unless something crazy happens. So, David, what do you have for this as your prediction?
I think you're right that it is going to be quite a cagey affair. It's probably the most obvious thing to say, but I think this one's going to be more in terms of who's got the best attack. Neither side fills me with any confidence defensively. We've seen Portugal be exposed. I think Belgium don't look that great defensively either. So I think if Portugal with Ronaldo and their attack can, get it together and not have to rely on Cristiano, then I think they might sneak it. But for me, I'm going to go 2-2 all the way through to penalties.
That's a big call. I mean, I can see Belgium winning this one, I think. It's not been a good Euros for Bruno Fernandes, has it? He's not carried his club form over into Portugal. As we've been hearing from Fernando Santos, the Portugal coach today, he's been talking publicly about thinking there are weaknesses in the Belgian team. He's not saying what they are, but he thinks in the Denmark game he found weaknesses. So to go out so boldly in public to sort of basically think, we can get at you, which is what he's saying is interesting. He has been talking about the multiple formations that Belgium are using, talking about the going with 3-4-3 or a 3-4-1-2. So he knows that they're going to come out on the front foot. Also, some good news for Belgium. We've been hearing from Roberto Martinez today saying that Kevin De Bruyne is now in a perfect physical condition. He was obviously injured in the Champions League final. Also Axel Witsel and Eden Hazard as well are fit. It's interesting. They're going to have to play in Seville, and even Spain have been complaining about the pitch, even though it's their own stadium and their own turf. But interesting how they do cope with that. But I think Belgium will do it inside 90 minutes.
And if Kevin De Bruyne is fully fit, then that bodes for a very exciting game. It'd be interesting to see his partnership with Lukaku from the get-go, really.
Yeah, I just can't see how Portugal scores in the run of play. It hasn't really, besides the penalties that they've gotten, I just don't see how they're scoring like in open play. I don't really know what's happening there. So, But for Belgium, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be Kevin De Bruyne to Lukaku running at your back line. It makes sense to me. So I do think it'll go into extra time. I think, like Portugal will get like a penalty or something and Belgium will score a goal, that whole thing. But I have Belgium winning in extra time, something like that. So now let's talk about Croatia versus Spain. I think this may be a sneaky good one. For some reason, I feel like this may be a sneaky good one. I don't know why. It's just a quirky type of fixture. Spain, 5 goals against who are they playing? You guys
Slovakia.
Yeah. And so finally, Eminem, Murata, and Moreno are doing it. Hopefully they can keep that up. So what do you guys have for this one?
Sweet from them.
I mean, that's just what I've been calling them, Eminem. I'm like, which one missed this time? Which M, So they're good for a couple misses, a couple offsides, all those types of things. But hopefully that's going to galvanize them in this next round. Croatia is also coming off of a decent win, in their last game too. So what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of an odd tournament for both of them. Both under threat of not been qualifying for the round of 16 at some points, and they're flattered to see they haven't done well at all. Spain with those draws, but then a big performance against Slovakia, so obviously confidence will be high. Croatia again looking in doubt at various times that they'd even get through, but I think Spain should have enough. Can Morata actually rediscover his scoring boot? So, but I can't see a Croatia win this one. So actually, yeah, they can clip that up and play it in the dressing room now.
So you have Spain in regular time.
Yeah.
90 minutes. Okay, perfect. David, what do you have?
I'm going to go. I've got a sneaky suspicion Croatia might just sneak this. I mean, before that Slovakia game, Luis Enrique talked about Spain being like a bottle of cava that was waiting to pop. And I'm not sure the 5-0 win over Slovakia qualifies as, them having arrived in the tournament. I mean, Slovakia were very underwhelming in that game. And I just feel that if Croatia can control that midfield with Modric, with Kovacic, with Brozovic, I think they might just sneak this one. So I'm going to go Croatia in extra time.
I have the same thing, Croatia in extra time. I think Spain will miss their chances. I'm just not sure. I'm convinced that they're over that just yet. And Croatia has enough experience in their side, I think, to try maybe get this over the line. So I have Croatia in extra time, just like you do, David.
I just don't feel, just one more thing, I don't feel Luis Enrique even knows his best 11. I mean, if you look at that last game, Azpilicueta came in at right back. He played Garcia, who's just joined Barcelona. Llorente was on the bench. And I just feel that I don't feel Luis Enrique knows his best 11. And I would be amazed if Llorente doesn't start the next game. But does he bring him back in at right back, or does he play him a bit further forward? You've got a lot of questions still over Morata, and he's been speaking about receiving awful threats on social media towards him and his family. So I just think there's a lot going on there for Spain, and I'm not sure if it's going to be enough for them.
Yeah, actually, interesting you mentioned that. I was at the England team base today, and Declan Rice was talking about how he just deleted Twitter off his phone for the tournament just because of the, not wanting to see that reaction. Just a reminder about the sort of dark side of fandom.
So whether it starts, who knows? But I think Croatia might sneak this one.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about France versus Switzerland. Is there a way that Switzerland could do something against this team? I mean, to be honest, I don't think France has looked amazing in the group stages, but their zone of genius is definitely in the knockouts. Like, they're good in the knockout rounds. And so I don't know. I'm thinking France in regular time. I think they're going to get it over the line, but does anybody think differently, or are we all kind of agreeing there? What do you think, Rob?
It does point to going to extra time based on their previous meetings, because 4 of the 5 last matches between them have have been draws. So obviously, that would point to no winner inside 90 minutes. But there have been those real questions about France, about Benzema. He's only just got off the mark. No goals at all from Kylian Mbappe. That's pretty incredible, I'd say. You know, top scorer in the French league last season for PSG. Can't find the net at all. I think he did help set up goal for Benzema. Certainly won a penalty, I think. But yeah, they have lacked that sort of that verve and that attacking excitement I think we'd expect of them so far, France. And yeah, they've had the disappointing draws. That 1-1 with Hungary obviously showed that they have their frailties. But you know, I think you have to separate the group stage from the knockout phase, obviously, because there's so little. You know, you can get through without much difficulty. Yes, they're in a tough group, but they probably always need to eventually come through. But the question is, who will win it? I think France will win it by an extra time.
I'm going to go France in 90 minutes. I think this is probably the game where we're going to see Mbappe score a goal. I think it's going to be very hard for Switzerland to keep him, Griezmann and Benzema quiet. France are still creating chances. They might be offside here and there. They've had a couple of goals disallowed, of course. But I think it's not going to be possible for Switzerland to keep those three quiet. So I'm going France in 90 minutes.
I asked you guys last time if you thought that maybe France had made a little bit of a mistake rejigging around their team and bringing Benzema into the side. Not necessarily that he shouldn't have gotten a call up, but do you think that maybe not having Giroud up there doing what Giroud does best, holding up the ball, and they had that chemistry, do you think that may have, rocked the boat a little bit? I mean, they don't look great offensively. Am I the only one who still thinks that they should have just kept Giroud?
What helped win in the World Cup 3 years ago? That's the big thing. And actually, you take Giroud for granted, the role that he can bring. And
he's often taken for granted. As an Arsenal fan, I can say, yes, he's somebody that people tend to look over. And I'm not saying that Benzema doesn't deserve the call-up. Of course he did. He was in great form for Real Madrid. I'm just saying a team that's a lot of their strength comes from the chemistry that they've built over the last, however many years, to take such a key figure out and then to see them look so blunt up top. I can't look away from it. I just can't look away from it. I'm waiting for Benzema to really not justify this, but shut this up in my mind. Because it keeps coming up maybe this should be Giroud. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just me, who knows? So let's talk about England versus Germany. This is, for an England fan, I'm sure, the ending of the group, the group of death was kind of stressful, seeing 1 minute you're going to play Germany, the next minute you're going to play Portugal. It's just going through, and then all of a sudden it's Germany. They have to be excited about this matchup. I mean, Germany is good, but they're obviously going through some sort of transition. What's your guys' temperature on this matchup? Is it good for England to be matched up with them instead of a France versus a Portugal?
That was a hectic night, wasn't it, the other night? And I suppose because as England fans, sure, as well as neutral journalists, but you sort of trying to follow the way in terms of who would England prefer to be facing. Actually, then when Hungary was second at one point and got Hungary, but actually Hungary are pretty dangerous. It'd be far better to face Germany the way they are at the moment. So actually, there is that. There is that sense, I think, that Germany might be there be able to be beaten this time. I mean, what's interesting talking to so many of the England players through the last few days at their St George's Park base is basically the history means pretty much nothing to them, because the last time that England and Germany met in a tournament was 2010 at the World Cup with the Lampard goal. And, Declan Rice was something to say about how he remembers that as the non-goal, and that's one of his early sort of football memories and things. And the sense is really that they're not burdened by the history that perhaps the players that played Germany throughout the 2000s had that full sense of Euro 96, when, of course, Gareth Southgate missed the penalty in the shootout in the semi-final. And it's something he's talked to his own players about, the sort of anguish he went through, the struggles he went through afterwards, and, being held responsible for England not reaching the Euro 96 final. And also before that, the penalty shootout defeat in the 1990 World Cup semi-finals too. And it seems like ancient history for these current players completely. But saying that, the way things are at the moment, one of England's big challenges is the lack of goals from Kane, the lack of shots on target, and probably more importantly is the lack of service to him as well. It's like a team contribution as well. So he's not really, getting the support in there. And obviously they've got the setback with Mason Mount missing. He's still self-isolating after the curious case of coming into contact with the coronavirus infected Billy Gilmore after the Scotland game. And, so he's a loss. But I think we saw some more encouraging signs in England's last game when they did beat the Czech Republic. It did seem, that had a bit more attacking impetus, even though it was still they couldn't build on the single goal. And actually, it was pretty dangerous because if they'd conceded one, then they'd have lost top spot too. As for Germany, I think it'd be, if we follow the narrative, it'll probably be a Timo Werner hat-trick. He's had such a challenging first season at Chelsea that you could just imagine him on English soil being the player who manages to inflict all the pain. But they've got so many threats in Germany side, particularly, we're talking about Joshua Kimmich in particular, so versatile, so impactful as well, let alone the sort of outright attacking options that they do have. But, we've seen they're susceptible.
Yeah, David, what do you...
I think this one is just too tight to call. I think for both teams, when they're preparing for this game, I just don't feel either one of them knows what to expect from the other side. I think England have really just, almost bumbled their way into the knockout stages. I mean, they were impressive for a short while in the last game against the Czechs, but the second half wasn't so good. And with Germany, after beating Portugal in the way they did, I think we just expected them to steamroll the Hungarians. And they didn't. And at one point, it looked like they were going out. So it's going to be very hard in terms of what to expect from both sides. I mean, how do you prepare to, on paper, it looks like Harry Kane can't find a goal and won't score a goal. But is anyone going to really back against him to do it at Wembley Stadium against Germany? You couldn't say so. And the same questions that Southgate will have with the German side. I mean, they don't really look that convincing. But as Rob said, they've got options there. Timo Werner might score a goal. You've got Gnabry. You've got Leroy Sané, who hasn't impressed, but again, with his pace and creativity, I mean, they're a real attacking threat. So I think this one has more questions than answers for me, and I'm going to go extra time. But I'm struggling to pick a winner, so I might just go England in extra time.
I managed to avoid, I realised, completely giving any prediction there. I managed to talk around the game so much I couldn't find it. But yeah, I'm sure it'll go to penalties.
I have England on penalties. That's what I think. I think it's going to be a tight game.
I'll say Germany on penalties because I'll probably get my predictions wrong. So hopefully it'll be good to be wrong.
It's going to be interesting because so many of these players know each other quite well. You have Havertz and Werner, who obviously they play in England. Leroy Sané used to play in England. It's going to be a good matchup. So we'll see. But I do think England will nick it in penalties. I just have this weird feeling they'll do it. They will. They'll get it over the line, especially if they have Bukayo Saka out there on the field. No, I'm just joking, you guys.
And he was excellent in that game. Excellent against the Czechs.
I had to make sure I got it in at least one time while we were on air right now. Just one time, So, but
it is how we look to one person as like the savior and the new gene. The new gene is like it was obviously Calvin Phillips after the first game, and now obviously Saka. But I think everyone's in search of like a wonder, a wonder new arrival, so to speak, into a tournament.
100%. So last but not least, we'll talk about Sweden versus the Ukraine. I have a hard time choosing this one. I really did, because for me, it could go either way. I know the Ukraine is pretty strong, but I think towards the end of the group stages, it seemed like Sweden was starting to kind of click a little bit more. So Rob, what's your temperature on this one? What do you think?
I think this will be a Sweden win. The fact is Sweden have been pretty impervious at times. They're looking at their record. They're unbeaten in 8 matches this year, won 7, kept clean sheets in 6 of them. They're really well organised defensively. Quite interesting hearing how actually, in terms of the the style, actually very much influenced by Roy Hodgson when he was in Swedish football. We've been hearing from them and today just about how they're building up to this game, and they have been pretty ruthless at times in this tournament. Perhaps in the victory over Poland, yes, they were did concede the goals, but yeah, they had that 0-0 draw against Spain when they managed to sort of prevent Spain from scoring, even though they had like 85% of the possession on the ball. So yeah, I think they're showed through the group stage that actually this does point to a Spain win, I would say. Sorry, not a Spain, Sweden win. Sorry.
What do you think,
I'm
David?
going to argue the opposite, actually. I'm going to go for Ukraine. And I just think that their attack is probably going to really, really threaten that Swedish backline. I think we saw when Sweden played Poland, the Swedes struggled with the physicality of that Polish side. And Ukraine have a lot of similar qualities in their side with Yarmolenko, Yarmachuk. I really like Malinovsky, who I think has had a great season with Atalanta in Serie A. I think the Swedes might struggle to contain that Ukraine attack, and I'm going to put my foot in the Andrei Shevchenko camp and back Ukraine to win this one.
I don't know, you guys. I think I really don't know. So I think I'll go Sweden in extra time, because I just like the look of Alexander Isak, to be honest. So if he's out there, I'm going to back him to maybe score in extra time, and Sweden will win it. So that's what I'm going to go with. It's just so difficult, you guys. Like I don't know. I don't have any great statistics to back me up on this one. It's just, I'm just going to go with just a random guess. But
you need a hunt at this time of the tournament.
It's so difficult because none of my predictions earlier that I thought I had like great, backup for have come to fruition. So now I'm just like, well, I'm just going to go with my gut. But yeah, you guys, that's going to be it for the show today. My name is Jessica, and you can follow me on Twitter at @It'sJessino. Thank you so much to Rob. You can find him on Twitter at Rob Harris, and David, who you can also find on Twitter at DavidGerges86. Thank you to everyone who joined us today, and we'll have another episode for you guys on Thursday, the 1st of July, reviewing all of the latest action and goals from Euro 2020. So we'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.